Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so happy to have you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So definitely for our audience who might not be familiar with you yet, but are, I'm sure, going to be very excited to get to know you, please tell us a little bit about who you are, what you currently do, and then we'll get into the existence of Mothers of MoGraph. So Casey, I'll let you kick things off.
Okay, well, I am currently working full-time at a digital ad agency, and I'm a full-time mom. And Jenny and I have started this community, Mothers of MoGraph.
It's wonderful.
So I'm Jenny Davis, and I run a small studio called Drek Studio based in Hamilton, Ontario, where we do primarily motion design, branding and motion designing. I've got a daughter and a husband and a dog, and we started Mothers of MoGraph about 10 months ago now. And we've just created a community that's about support and no judgment, and just being there for one another and highlighting people that don't necessarily always get to be in the spotlight.
Yes. I think
Tell us a little bit about that's fantastic.
Go ahead, yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think it's the first time I've ever seen in a motion graphics piece, because I saw somebody post it, I've never seen animated nipple cream. So that's a first that I was very welcoming of. I was like,
there might have been two. Amisha Lee did one, and nice. I think Vasi also did. I don't know if there was nipple cream. There was definitely nipples, though.
I love it.
I love the amount of I guess boobs that we've had in our animation has been kind of funny, and it's really great. I just love also, it was so funny at this last conference we were at. We had that animation playing like on a loop on our table, and we'd be talking to somebody and you would see them be like, double take the screen.
So
it was pretty entertaining, honestly.
So just for the guys who aren't familiar, what does the cream do specifically? I've never come across that.
Let us educate you. Breastfeeding can be a really, really painful thing for women to do. Okay. In fact, it causes lots of chapping and you can get very dry and cracked nipples. A lot of bleeding can happen. And so nipple cream helps with that.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's
not something that's talked about often, but
no.
It's a significant hardship for some women as they're breastfeeding. Yeah.
It's one of those things that when you have a kid, it's like, I feel like somebody should have mentioned this.
Yes. Right. You get there and you're like, why wasn't I warned?
Right.
It makes perfect sense. It kind of ties into a question I have, which is sort of around like what sorts of challenges mothers are facing, when they're working creatively, and that maybe most like employees or clients or employers don't even know about or don't realize.
So there's two parts to this question. So first of all, like, I think one of the really important things that Casey and I have come up against when we started this group is that really a lot of the things that we're talking about, yes, we're talking about it from the perspective of mothers, but it 100% doesn't only have to do with mothers. I mean, you've got parents, you've got people that are taking care of other people. You've got just like a regular person that doesn't have any responsibilities, but also needs to be, also has to have their own balance and life. So I think a lot of the struggles are similar. And from our own perspective, I think, moms have a lot to do. There's a lot of responsibilities, and as much as I would love to say that, society sees us as equal partners in a relationship with our child, schools call me first. Like the play dates, they call me first. The doctor's appointments, they call me first. So it's I would love to say that it's equal, but in the end of the day, there's a lot of like mental management that needs to go into having children, and I think when studios have like lack of empathy for that, or when you have to get approval to take your kid to a doctor's appointment or to the dentist or to a school trip or stuff like that, then it can be very frustrating for parents in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's frustrating for people who aren't parents as well, because I know before I became a mom, I was definitely one of the people giving the side eye to parents who were leaving early or whatever. But I think that our big thing is that we have been trying to get people to kind of see the whole picture and have empathy. So so if maybe there'll be a little less side eye. I don't know. And like I said, I was 100% part of that before I became a parent. So
I was going to say, what kind of mechanisms have you seen in maybe or that you've implemented in your work, or in your, I guess, the business side of your work, the HR side of your work, to mitigate some of those like random things that happen, like daycare, like dental thing? Like, is there like a schedule that you guys keep, like more flexibility on, or stuff like that? Is there another?
Yeah, I was thinking along similar idea. I think we were on the same page about like how your current situation informs policy and how policies need to be changed at different studios. And just curious.
For sure. I think there's a lot of like levels to that, and I don't think that every studio or agency or freelancer can change everything now, but there are a lot of programs and systems that are starting to come into play, like the 4-day work week or stuff like that gives people a little bit more flexibility. I know that with my studio, I try to book freelancers on project rates, and that way there's a lot of we adhere to milestones and less to the specific 9 to 5. And that's very helpful, especially if like I need to step away, or like if we have a milestone that's at 4:00, then I know like at 4:00 I'm at my computer ready to like accept things and go over whatever. But that doesn't mean that I need to be there the entire day, and the same for them. I think a lot of it comes down to trust. You have to trust the people that you're working with. If you're lucky enough to find those people, then you're in a good spot to make those changes. I think it's really just about creating like flexibility, and trusting your employees to give back what you give to them. I'm a true believer that if you kind of like practice what you preach, and if you have employees and you give them the freedom and you give them, to be adults, then, they appreciate it, and they kind of give it back tenfold. And I've seen that multiple times with people that I work with. So,
yeah, I have experienced a little bit of all of the flavors of this industry. Like when I first had my daughter, I was working full-time at a visual effects, in the visual effects department. And then I went full-time freelance. So I have that experience. And now I'm at another full-time job. But, things have changed so much throughout these last few years. I actually ended up having to quit that full-time job because it wasn't providing me the flexibility that I needed to be a parent, essentially. I think I would have stayed there much longer if I could have worked from home a couple days a week, but that was not an option at that time because it was pre-pandemic. So I ended up jumping full-time freelance, which gave me the flexibility to set my own schedule, to not have to work 40 hours if I don't need to. Luckily, I have a really supportive partner, and at that time, he was doing a lot of working, and I was able to kind of fit the work in around the rest of our life. But then when the pandemic hit, I was working so much, he actually quit his job. So he was the primary parent, like the stay at home parent. And so our roles shifted quite a lot. And now that we're in a post-pandemic world and work from home is a more available option, my full-time job is 100% work from home, and it is such a game changer for parenting. Yeah. I can run to the post office or run to the grocery store or pick her up from school if she's sick or whatever the situation may be, and also get my work done and hit my deadlines and do the things. I also have a really great employer who does give the trust. As long as my work is turned in and it's quality work, then we're all on the same page, and we do our check-ins, and I have a meeting schedule. Obviously I can fit things in around that. But yeah, I think it really does, in all of those scenarios, comes down to exactly what Jenny just said, which is trust and flexibility. And I think that goes a long way for most people in most positions. So
yeah, you're also making me think about, I'm curious if for somebody who maybe is a mother that hasn't gotten into motion graphics yet, but wants to, I'm sort of curious what sort of transferable skills you think there are there that can like totally help make them an even stronger candidate for employment. Because I imagine that there's probably a lot of communication skills and like management that you can easily transfer over to a job in animation.
Oh yeah. So you're saying the scenario is there is a mom already considering motion?
Yes.
Yeah. We actually think that the motion design industry is a great place to be a mom because of the flexibility. There's a lot of other industries that don't provide that opportunity. And I think that also the motion design industry is a great place because you don't necessarily have to get that 4-year degree to get into it, so you can work your training around your mom's schedule in a little bit more flexible way than having to go, say, to university. Yeah, I guess that's what I would say. We wanted to make sure that we could pull all of the moms out of their hiding spaces, because I think there wasn't very much visibility on the moms before we started this. And so there might have been a lot of mothers or even young women who might be considering family, who might not have realized that this actually is a viable option because you couldn't really see it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, it's again, like, I don't think it's like it's only mothers. I think from our perspective, we've noticed that we are better at setting boundaries and saying no, which is key.
It's a great skill to have.
Yeah.
I did not learn it until I had my daughter. I will say that.
I'm very good at it now. Standing your ground, learning to communicate. I think a lot of the skills that you pick up when you're, explaining to, a 6-year-old having a tantrum about something, not to say that I don't know, that's going to come off really weird, but
it's totally fine.
I think you can say clients throw tantrums sometimes.
I was going to say
it's like the ability to like mitigate that conversation, and it's like, okay, like this is what you're seeing and this is what I'm telling you, and let's figure out a way to like push forward. So I think like communication skills and boundary setting, those are all transferable skills, and time management. I think that something that's very overlooked is that moms have a lot to do and they tend to have less time to do it in, but yet they still get everything done. So I know I'm very good at time management. And I'm a mom. So I don't.
Oh yeah, we've got like multiple schedules we're juggling usually. So we got the family schedule. So
right,
I have a lot of calendars. That's I'm very good at setting up calendars.
Yeah.
Another skill too. I know I've talked about it in other places, but for me, after I became a mom, anticipating needs was a big one that I learned with her, but also I found transferred, especially in my freelance work, because I was managing a lot more of the projects on my own. I felt like my ability to anticipate the client needs grew. And so that was another one that I think is a good one.
I think anticipating also like needs of like the people that are working with you, and just having like that empathy to understand like what they're going through as well. And when we were at Making Midwest, for example, we all had snacks in our
Oh my gosh, traveling with a group of moms was like an absolute dream. Everybody was anticipating everyone else's needs like all the time. It was like I got in really late and Jenny had like dinner waiting for me when I got there, and then like there was a morning where we got to let her sleep in and I had breakfast waiting for her. It was like an absolute dream. Everyone should travel with a pack of moms. I think it's the only way to travel.
I think that's the new way to travel. Like
it's
into
the best way to travel. Yeah.
There's some kind of like weird app idea out there that's
no,
like,
you know what
it's
it
like
is.
an Airbnb,
it's,
but it's like for
Airbnb
matching
experience.
a group
Yeah,
of moms
exactly.
to go travel together. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
It was so great though too to travel with people who like at a work event with a group of people who are like me. I didn't feel like I had to hide any part of myself in this trip. And I like, not that I'm like actively tucking away my motherhood, but I do think before Mother's a MoGraph, I was pretty actively tucking that away, and I didn't really talk to people about that experience. And it was so amazing on this trip to be like I could show off a picture of my kid and not be afraid that someone's going to be like, oh my God, they just talk about their kid all the time. You know, like we were all like-minded people and we all got to be our full selves. And I truly felt like that was the first time in this industry at an event that I could do that. It was pretty special.
I think we've also noticed a lot since we started Mother's a MoGraph, a lot more like chatter on social media about with designers and motion designers like coming out and saying that like I'm a mom or showing off their kids or showing off their like kids artwork or stuff like that. And I think that's, I don't know if I'm just more, I notice it more now, but I don't remember seeing it, a lot of it before we started.
I honestly have been seeing more dads doing it too. Like just parents in general are talking a lot more about this other side of themselves. And it's been really cool to see.
Oh, I'm really glad
Speaking
to see
of
that.
dads, let's talk about dudes.
Do dudes not
go
get
on.
talked about enough?
I feel like we're kind of oppressed. I don't know.
Aw, baby.
Well, so you mentioned your partner. I just wanted to get a sense of like, what advice would you have for dads to show up for moms in a creative space? Because I think that's happening often. I think a lot of my dude friends are having creative partners, and sometimes with children, and they might feel like they don't know how to support the creativity side. So I kind of want to just, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure.
I would say I don't know the answer. I can give what works for me is when I'm given space. And I remember when my daughter was very young, it was hard to find space for creativity, and it was hard to find space to do things for myself. And I remember my husband at the time just kind of like pushing me out the door and being like, you go do that. And it didn't really matter what it was, but just, you know, taking off the pressure of having to figure everything out and just, you know, fully committing and saying, I got this, go do something else. I think that's when I kind of started like finding myself again. And I'm curious to hear what Casey has, because I'm in Canada and our mat leave is pretty extensive, especially compared to the States. So I'm curious to hear what kind of things helped you at the beginning.
I will say that for the first few years of motherhood for me, I did not feel creative at all. I kind of felt like I had lost my creativity there for quite a while. I didn't have the bandwidth to think about it. And I was actually reading something recently about like how in motherhood your brain shrinks. I need to look into this more. But like part of that shrinking is like the creative part of it, and it all comes back, right? And what it is doing is essentially trying to make other parts of your brain more efficient. But anyway, I don't know the science behind that, but it was making sense to me, because when I was in those first couple years, I felt so guilty because I let go of a lot of my creativity, and it was really hard being in this field because it's such a creative driven industry. because I wasn't exploring anything outside of the work that I was just doing. And even sometimes when I was doing the work, I was not feeling very inspired by it. And I was finding it very difficult to find inspiration. So I think that a big part for me, and this is not necessarily a partner thing, but I needed to give myself some grace there and just have patience and know that it will come back and something will spark eventually again. But it's really easy to beat yourself up for that. Yeah. My partner did give me a lot of space to do the things I needed to. I would agree with Jenny that space is an important thing. Like, you have to get out of the house and not be responsible for other humans for like a small part of your week. Yeah. And just be able to like take care of yourself in that moment and not have to worry about, feeding and diapering and all of the things. And it's really hard to do that in those first couple years because those little humans are very difficult to take care of, and there's a lot to do. And like your house gets let go, and your like the yard has not been mowed for 3 months, and it just feels like an overwhelming amount of things you have to do all the time. So I think anticipating needs comes in again there. I think it's sometimes challenging for folks to do that. But oftentimes, especially in that early motherhood phase of life, you don't even know what you need yourself. You're having a hard time figuring it out. So if somebody else can come up and be like, hey, I made dinner, like, you want to take it out on the back porch while I put the baby to bed or whatever, then that is super helpful. But like, I need to not have to ask for all of those things because I don't often know. And
another really important part of this conversation is that it's important for both partners to understand their parental rights in a company. So, for example, I like, don't quote me on this because I don't remember the full legalities, but in Canada, the father can also take paternal leave, as can adoptive parents or other spouses. There's like a plethora of people that can take the same advantages as the maternity leave, and I think those are really important conversations to have as a couple to understand how that time is divided. And I wish that it was more common for dads to take paternal leave. Right. And there are studies, hundreds of studies that show that if your partner is home with you for the first month or two when you have a baby, then moms are able to recover quicker. They're able to sleep, which is incredibly important at the beginning. You don't get that option a lot, and having a supportive partner being able to allow you to sleep and give and help you with feeding or all of those things. Like, know your rights, understand them, talk to your companies. Like, a lot of companies have parental leave. I know that even in the States where the parental leave is useless, but some of them have those options for you, and take advantage of them. It's not only for you and your bond with your kid, but your partner needs help.
Yes. Yeah, we were fortunate in our situation. This sounds so stupid. First of all, I was fortunate to have been laid off from my job, so I got a longer time at home being supported by unemployment, right? So right. How lucky for me I got laid off, so I could be home with my daughter. But also, how lucky for my partner to have banked as much sick time as he did, because he was able to be home, I want to say, for like 5 weeks. He had so much sick time built up that he was able to use for that. But he didn't get paternity leave. He got sick time. And he would have got whatever he had. Not everybody happens to have 5 weeks of sick time built up, because he really never gets sick. So he never used any of that. To have. I know. Yeah. He's got a great immunity system. Not as great now that we have a little person that sneezes in your face, but at that time he was able to bank a lot of that time, and that's the only reason I got to have him home, and he got to be home and have that bonding time with her. How lucky for us that we were, you know, that I was laid off and he had sick time. So it's such a silly thing, but it was actually a very fortunate thing for us.
Yeah. I mean, you're bringing up some great points here about, and it goes a little bit back to something you said earlier about feeling like you had to, in the hiring process. I'm curious about how moms might be hiding themselves from the reality of saying, I'm a mom and I'm you know, applying to this job, because it might have some preconceived notions about the expectation, or like, you know, the employer might just have some bias around that. So I'm kind of curious what, you know, what you wish either clients or employers would keep in mind when they're hiring mothers for creative roles.
I think employers and hiring like HR, but like governments as well.
Yeah, let's rope them in too. Yes.
Like I you know, I have a small business, and I know that if you know, I don't have full-time employees, but if I were to have a full-time employee and they would take off a year, I'd be like, you know, that can cripple small businesses. In the States, again, like I don't think the laws are as helpful.
No.
And it's state by state here too. So like every state has its own set of rules and regulations and things. Like I know New York just passed a great thing for maternity, paternity leave, but
didn't Shauna also say something passed in Denver as well, in Colorado?
It might have been. I know like California has some pretty good maternity policies. I live out in Oregon, and there are some helpful programs here as well. But they're also very convoluted programs, and like it's very difficult to get into them, and there's nobody to help you figure it out either. And so it doesn't, like, it's not an easy process to take advantage of the things that are available.
Yeah, I think for like hiring managers and stuff, you know, I don't know what the answer is until there's proper systems in place to help them. I don't know what the answer is. I can tell you that I never, when I was thinking about having children, I was working at a company and I knew I was going to have children. In fact, when I signed the papers, I believe I was already pregnant.
Did you tell them?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I had been freelancing for them for a while, and I think the person that hired me, I think in hindsight probably knew, but I was like a day and a half pregnant or something at the time. It wasn't like it wasn't real yet, but you know, I never mentioned it. I knew, you know, I knew I wouldn't get the job if I said I was leaving in 9 months. Yeah, and I know a lot of women that, you know, stay in a specific job or take a job that is not up to their skill level, or paying them less because they know that, you know, it's just for that like that safety net before they go off and for maternity leave, and you know, just having that's kind of like steady income coming in is very beneficial. I honestly, I don't know what the answer is. I think like if Mothers of MoGraph could do one thing, it would be change policies in like every single government around the world. So like, I don't think that's happening just yet, but it would be a nice to have.
We've definitely learned over the last year or so that animation especially can help inform policy change, which is pretty cool. Sure. So like making an animated video to be able to explain to city council what this policy change would mean and what impact it would have.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, we've done it for like the environmental health sector, and it's like to see something then pass was like, oh, we can help with that. That's cool.
Yeah,
like that can move a needle in a different direction. So that's
awesome.
I
think, I mean, let's do that, Casey.
Yeah, right?
Yes,
well, and
we support it.
One of the really wonderful things that has been happening in this community since it started, and this is like, it's been such a fun thing because Jenny and I started the community, right? But it's blossomed into its own thing, and like the women in it have taken it and ran, and so there's been some really beautiful collaborative projects that are taking off that Jenny and I are like hands off. We're not even
like the
helping.
the logo animations. One of the women, she was on our panel, Vasi from Black Box. She's just like, hey, do you want to do a logo collab? I'm like, that's great. I don't have time to deal with this. Do you want to do it? And she's like, yeah. And I said, and even at the time, I'm like, we don't have to like set a date on it or anything. She's like, oh, I thought it would be great for making Midwest. And I'm like, you're right. Let's do that.
And it was so great.
It was beautiful. And there was like the Mother Day animation that Emma Rhodes organized. I didn't even know about it until like the day of.
I felt bad. Jenny somehow got left out of the channel, but it was happening. And then I was like, oh, time to post. And Jenny's like, wait, what's this?
I was so excited. I was just like, oh my God, these are beautiful.
Awesome. And so I think it could be a really impactful collaborative project that maybe some of our community members could jump on and help out with.
100%.
Yeah.
You could do
love it. Love that idea. Thank you.
State by state basis.
State by state. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Giving you more work. Speaking of work, I wanted to get to the sort of creative, because I've seen some really cool stuff on the channels that you guys post. So I wanted to ask, and maybe it does or doesn't, and I kind of wanted to ask, how does being a mom inform the creative work that you do, specifically either personal or what you do on a day-to-day basis?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I would say probably more... I would say on my personal work, it informs a lot more of what I'm doing. And I feel like, conversations with my daughter and stuff can spark something like some sort of creativity or something. Like we had a conversation one day about like unicorns and how she decided that they weren't real, but then we just got into like this entire conversations about like unicorns and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and that kind of like sparked like a creative outlet for me afterwards. And I think some of the branding and the direction that I've decided to take my company has come from either my daughter or from realizing what Mothers of MoGraph is, and how important it is, and how great it is to work with other women that are in the same headspace. So I think it definitely informs that part of my work a lot. I don't know that you know what? That's not true. A lot of the times I'll have clients that will come to me and they'll be like, we need this, this, and this. There's one client that we had like it was funny. It was like a coffee shop scene or something. And I put a pregnant woman in the ordering. She was like the main character, and they're like, no. And I'm like, come on, she's awesome.
No way. They said no.
But it was like I mean, I understood they were trying to go for like young and hip and whatever.
And moms are not those things.
Come on. But I was just like, come on, we can do it.
No, we've had similar experiences with like trying,
especially with characters.
Trying to be intentional about creating, more opportunity, or creating like a, just different takes and a fresh take on on putting characters in. And it just depends on the client sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it does. I mean, some companies do a beautiful job of it. I mean, Bien and Newfangled, they do a beautiful job of introducing inclusivity to their characters. Maybe I'm not like bold enough to be like, this is happening.
I think it's tough in a, like, I mean, I think a lot of creatives deal with this where it feels like they might not have in certain projects a feeling of like control over like what they can say, or their voice has like impact behind it. Because sometimes it's like, do the work, okay, get it done, goodbye. So I think it's just a matter of finding the clients who are more open to that collaborative idea and saying, yeah, we want your creative expertise on this, and we want that feedback and pushback because we know it'll make it better. So yeah, I think sometimes that's part of the course for navigating finding the right client.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what this has kind of influenced my work, is that I have been like actively seeking out people that I want to work with, and not necessarily coming to me, and people that I mesh with on like that we're in the same headspace. I don't know,
values,
values and stuff like that. I think that like for that, it has definitely pushed me to seek those people out. Yeah.
I would say for me that my journey into motherhood has been, after some trials and tribulations, has been a very empowering thing for me. I have found a lot of my confidence in my motherhood, and I would say that it's informed my work in, I really embraced, in an industry where there are not as many women, I've really embraced like wanting to be a figure, like, like a representation of the women in the industry. And I want my daughter to see what I can do and what she could do if she wanted to. And so in that way, I think motherhood has informed my work. Even like, I have pretty loud branding, and a lot of my values are wrapped up in supporting other women and those kinds of things. So
I think I just started like stopped apologizing,
Yes. Yeah. Stopped apologizing. What was it that I said recently? Like, I'm not asking anymore. I'm just telling people what I'm doing.
People, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm done asking. And that has all come up through my journey and being a parent. Because at some point you just have to, and thanks to Mother's Omograph for sure. Motherhood was this thing that I was so like afraid of embracing in this industry, and then the minute that I did embrace it, it has been like my slingshot forward. So maybe that's a lesson to everyone, that if you're a little afraid of a certain part of yourself, like, don't be. The authenticity really like goes a long way. And I think especially in our industry now, and especially in the state of this industry, like, people are looking for that, and authenticity and being a genuine whole person. So
yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, I know in the interest
I want to be mindful of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do think that I think we both applaud you for the work that you've been doing, and just for being some really kick-ass moms in the motion graphic space. Like, it's a wonderful thing to see. It has, I think it's informed a lot of people. It's informed a lot of business owners about what to do better, how to make change. And that's like, everything you're doing is helping to move the needle in the right direction. So I really appreciate both of what you bring to the table all the time. And and any way in which, people who don't have kids can support that, like, that's always a great thing too. So here to support however we can. But thank you.
Thank you for saying that. That means, that means a lot to us. I'll just add that when Casey and I started this, we wanted everybody in the Slack channel. We wanted just to start conversations, because we figured the best way to make change is to have conversations. And we quickly understood that wasn't giving our moms the safe space.
Yeah.
So we did end up closing down the Slack channel to moms. And it has been wonderful, but that is why it's so important for us to be on podcasts like this, to have we have our meetup, and we have our podcast, and we've got the newsletter, and the purpose of that was, and the social media, like, the purpose of that was not just to be like, oh, here's Mother's Omograph. It was to create those conversations and to set it out into the open world, and being like, this is what's happening. We're not saying that it's better or worse than your situation, but we're telling you from our perspective. And I think that our perspective also touches on a lot of other people that don't necessarily fall under the category of mother. And there's a lot of broken things in our system, and we need to change them. And if we're not talking about them, and we're not talking about what's hard and what's not working, then we're never going to see any movement. So that's really the purpose of all of this.
Yeah, we had like 3 main goals when we started this, and it was to bring the women together, the moms together in a community, and it was to put spotlight on some new names and faces and voices, and then it was to help educate the greater community. So those were that was what we went in for. I think we've been doing pretty okay at it.
I think so.
I would
For
I would
sure.
add another pillar there whenever you get a chance, is to shame other dudes.
No,
and
that's
dad
100% not part of what we're trying to do.
helping. I think there's a lot of guys out there again who I talk to, like, what's going on with your spouse or your girlfriend, like what's going on, and I feel like they're a little bit lost. And I think there's got to be something that you guys could do to be like, hey, this is how you could help us, just letting you know.
But
Like, I
that's
think-
exactly what Mothers of MoGraph is. Like, we're not here to shame anybody. Like, I like everybody, goes through their own journey. Everybody has their own family situation, their own financial situations. Like, we're not here to shame anybody. And we're not here to say that our perspective is better or harder or easier than anybody else's. We're just telling you how it is from the way that we see the world. And whether you choose to listen and take that into consideration into your life, that's up to you.
Right.
And like for those dads out there, that's why we're here. Because I think a lot of the times women don't share our feel. Everything's fine. Husband asks me what's wrong. I'm fine.
Ask
Oh.
me any day of the week and
Yeah.
I'm fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
This is just a call to say that like when somebody says they're fine, it's most likely incorrect. And there's a bunch of things that are going on under the surface, but we don't necessarily stand around and vote and voice them because we've got shit to do.
Mhm.
Right.
I would
So
I would echo that by saying that I think if like for any dudes out there, it's like if you see what's going on in Mothers of MoGraph, you can take that information and share it with your
Right.
fellow dudes. Like that's
Yeah,
on you.
yeah,
Like,
And that's something
yeah.
I say all the time about our own podcast is this podcast isn't just for moms. It's just from the perspective of moms.
Right.
So like I think everyone can glean something from our stories and our discussions and our talks. And we have always, like from the very beginning, we've always wanted this not to be like an us versus them situation, because it's not. We're all in it together. And we try to approach everything with a pretty high level of empathy. And we hope that by doing that, others will feel empowered to do the same, because I think that everything really comes down to empathy in the end, right? So
Yeah.
Nice.
on all sides of it, of all of the things.
Awesome.
So
You hear that, dudes? Let's do better.
empathy.
Empathy.
Just
It's a
empathy.
beautiful thing.
listen,
Beautiful
listen.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. So just to wrap up, we're gonna give you a chance to just tell people. So if they are moms, if they're not moms, how can they get in contact? What's the process there? Where can they find you?
Okay,
Give us all
let's see
the
if we
stuff.
can do
Yeah,
this
community.
in one go. So yeah, so you can find everything. We can find all of our links on mothersofmograph.com. If you can sign up for the newsletter, it's big, bold, and right in your face. We do a monthly newsletter. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can get to the rest of the links. If you're a mom, please join our Slack. We'd love to have you. There's a little form there asking like 2 questions.
Also, if you're considering motherhood, like
Also, please sign up. We've got a few moms in there that are, fly on the walls, kind of listening to conversations. We've got our Instagram, Mothers of MoGraph, and you can sign up for our newsletter. And if you really want to help us out, we launched our merch store, which you can also find on mothersofmograph.com. And
There it is. Oh, I love those.
Nice.
yeah,
Those are
we've
great.
got some great stuff on there. Emma Rhodes and Anne St. Louis have both contributed some designs on there that are so freaking cool
Nice.
and have been very popular. So.
And the money that we get from that goes to support our community and also gives a bit of a kickback to the artists involved. So
Oh,
that's
that's
been
wonderful.
really great.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
it.
Thank
I
you
did it.
so much. Yeah. No,
Thank
no,
you
this
guys
is-
so much for giving us a space to talk about things. I think we could talk about these things all day long if
Well,
people
you're welcome
allowed
back
us to.
anytime. Yeah,
Anytime.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is really wonderful. I think we've taken a lot away from this, and I know that our our audience will also take a lot away from it, especially
Yeah.
those who are like clients who want to support mothers that are, you know, doing some impactful work. So yeah, I'm glad that we could all cross connect.
Yeah. We'll
thank
have to
you
check
for
in
taking the
again in
time.
like a year and see
Yes.
what's happened.
Part
because-
two.
One last
Things-
question.
yeah.
Do you have to be a motion designer to join this group?
No, it's motion designers and adjacent industries. We've got sound designers, we've got copywriters, we've got producers, we've got illustrators, voiceover actors. It's motion design is where we came from, so that's kind of how it started. But there are so many things that go into motion design, VFX and cell animation and traditional animation, everything. Like if it moves or it doesn't, come on in.
If it's creative.
Shoot, there was
kinda-
like I was seeing not too long ago on LinkedIn, there was a gal talking about the game development industry and how hard it is over there as a mom
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And I was like, please join us.
Yeah.
We have so many similarities in our field, and I think that we can make this a wider net. So
Definitely.
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking
I'm
that.
excited to see how far this goes in a year. I bet there's
Oh
a
my
lot.
gosh.
We're gonna.
It's
have
only
a lot
been
of
10
change.
months so far, so like I
Nice.
like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on everything.
Yeah.
We're really
Thank you.
excited and happy to support in any way we can. So
Yeah.
thank you. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think
That's it.
we'll wrap it up there. So thank
Thanks
you
so
everyone
much.
for listening. Yeah, and
Yeah.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.